This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by Faulkner University. Choosing where to go to college is a big decision, and Faulkner University is the right choice for many reasons. First and foremost, they're committed to biblical teaching. Each of their 85 outstanding academic programs infuse Christian principles into the curriculum and prepare students for professional success in their career and meaningful service in their community. Their main campus in Montgomery, Alabama offers an abundance of opportunities for internships, networking, and entertainment. Over 96% of their students receive financial aid, making Faulkner education a great value. Faulkner is a Christian university dedicated to helping you grow strong in your faith, and their family-like atmosphere will make you feel right at home. Check out faulkner.edu today.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis, brought to you this week by Lads to Leaders. It is coming up April the 15th through the 17th. Great convention that takes place in several cities around the nation, and we hope that you guys will look into that and maybe get your groups to that. It has had a big part in my life and Will's life, who's not with us today. But certainly it's encouraged a lot of people through the years. So look into Lads to Leaders when you get a chance. And we're here once again with Travis Creasy, who is always with me by my side. Travis, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. It's always good to see you, Ben. It's President's Day. Riverside is out of school today. We're going into CYC, which means I won't go to work on Friday either. So I am rocking a 3-day work week, but it is a big weekend. And part of that big weekend, I'm sure that Faulkner University is going to be there at the convention center hanging out. And we sure have enjoyed having them as a title sponsor. And because of that, we've got a great guest, a special guest that's with us representing the Eagles of Faulkner University, Roxy Wishum. Roxy, how are you today?
Yes, thank you, Travis. And Ben, it's good to be with you. I'm doing very well today. And because it is President's Day, my co-worker and the director of the counseling center is not here. Her kids are out of school from Alabama Christian Academy. And so they went on a camping trip this weekend.
Nice.
And so they're out. I don't know if it's raining where you are. It's raining here. So they're out.
It's raining here.
Having fun in the great outdoors while it's drizzling rain. But so it's a little quiet here, but we are still here, and most of the students are here. Our classes are going on as usual, but
Gotcha.
But I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Well, Roxy, why don't you start off by telling us all that you do at Faulkner? I know how Christian education works. You usually wear multiple hats. I know that I do at Riverside. Ben does at Mars Hill Bible School. So if you want to tell us a little bit about what you do at Faulkner and how long you've been there.
As you can tell from appearances, I have a lot of years on me. And in that time, I've gained a little bit of wisdom to learn how to sidestep some of those multiple hats. And so I don't wear that many. And most of my responsibilities here are primarily as a mental health counselor for the university students,
Okay.
Undergraduate and graduate students, and employees. And I do teach a foundations class that all of our freshmen go through and transfer students. That's it's an interesting introduction to the students, and that's fun, and it gives me just enough experience with the teaching and using the technology that all the instructors, professors use to realize how poor I am at that, and to recognize that I need to stick to counseling. But it's been fun. That's been a good experience, good for me. And I have people sometimes years later who are in one of my foundations classes. I had a gentleman recently who's in law school now who has come back for counseling after 6 years. And he was in my foundations class 6 years ago and felt some sense of rapport. And so he sought me out and came back for counseling after that period of time. So that's cool to make that connection. But my job primarily is mental health counselor, and we do there's two of us that are full-time and one that's half-time. Phoebe Dunn is half-time with us here at Faulkner, and she works half-time with Vaughn Park Church of Christ here in town. Michelle Bond is our director and is full-time here. She's has been the director for quite some time and does an excellent job and is a great person to work with. So So the counseling center stays pretty busy, and that's most of what we do.
Very, very cool. And so, as you work with Faulkner, kind of tell us a little bit about some of your favorite aspects of Faulkner's culture. Just anything that you want to talk about, daily perks of working there, annual events, whatever it may be that just kind of stands out to you as favorite aspects.
I love being at Faulkner. I retired from a civil service job, and people used to ask me. I worked with the post office for a number of years and did all the jobs, including management there. And people used to ask, well, what are you going to do when you retire? And I would tell them, I don't know, but it's going to have Saturdays off. And so I love any job that has Saturdays off. But this one in particular, because you feel like you're doing something that has the potential to change someone's life. And that's always an encouraging thing. But particularly here on campus at Faulkner, because obviously it is a Christian university, and that creates a culture that's different from almost any place today. Now, we have a number of Christian colleges in the United States and several in the Southeast. And all of those universities and colleges have a culture that's unique in that college setting. So that fact that it is a Christian environment, and there is a daily chapel, and all the professors have a perspective, a Christian worldview and perspective. And so when you're learning history or biology or whatever the topic is, you're learning it from someone who has a Christian worldview. And I think that makes a world of difference. And so there's that is pretty obvious. I think everybody would be well aware as a Christian university that is a benefit of being here. One of the things that probably less obvious is it's been amazing how over the years, and particularly the last 6 or 8 or 10 years, Faulkner has really grown in diversity. The diversity of our student population is very impressive from a racial standpoint, from a multinational standpoint, and obviously gender. But I guess the thing that has pleased me the most, that makes me feel the best and the most hopeful is we started some years ago, we started our first football program here. And that was a huge infusion of new people. And not all of those had that Christian perspective and worldview. And so there was a little bit of, there was a period of time of adjustment. That part of the student body did not immediately integrate with the larger student body. So we had a few years that it was like the football players and then everybody else. And that was most unfortunate. And that created some racial segregation kind of accidentally came out of that. But we've had the last couple of head coaches have just done an amazing job of, first of all, weeding out those people that were troublemakers, but also integrating the good student athletes with all of the students on campus. Of course, a large percentage of our students now are student athletes. And so that integration has happened in a way it took some effort by a number of people, but if you're just a casual observer, it would seem like it just occurred naturally. But you see it in little things. As an old guy walking into the cafeteria, I can open my own door and I can hold the door for myself. I'm not quite that feeble yet. But these young 6 foot, 350-pound football players will stand there and hold the door while I creep up there at my slow pace. Just very kind-hearted and gentlemanly kind of things to do. That kind of thing, you see a lot of that. And so there's a lot of interpersonal interactions that are going on between races and people from countries all over the world. And I see people in my practice here that are from a variety of cultural backgrounds. And a lot of people come here, I think everywhere, wherever you go, people have a tendency to feel like I'm the only one that is in my category. I'm the only one that's like me. And so part of my job and part of the university's job, and I think Faulkner does a good job of this, of helping people see you are not so different and you're not so alone. All of us feel like we're isolated and feel like we're the only ones like this. And I wish we could take that environment that's at Faulkner and sprinkle that around the country, I think it would help solve a lot of our problems and the
Absolutely.
animosity and the hand grenades we're throwing at each other from one side to the other.
I have a good relationship down there, and we love the admission counselor that we have, Mr. Randolph, who comes and visits us from time to time. He's great. He's an awesome guy. So there's those two things that we've got in common. So you're not alone on those things for sure.
Well, I had one of your coaches was at church with us yesterday, Pritchard, who coaches the soccer team, was here. He married a young girl who was in our youth group. So they come around and visit with us occasionally. And so I was just talking to him about, what you do about recruiting the kids from other countries. And he said they've got some people who does that. So I didn't know if he had to go on long trips, but they're a great little family and appreciate them very much. But we were talking about that culture yesterday together. So
yes, and all of our coaches and all of our teams really do an amazing job of recruiting overseas. Patrick McCarthy with the baseball team does a great job of bringing people in outside the continental U.S. But obviously in soccer, you're going to do that because it's still relatively new in the U.S. So to get top quality players, you need to go to other countries, and that's been fascinating to watch that and watch people. And I'll go back to my most recent foundations class this past fall. I asked as I was just interacting with them, I started to pick up. I have a lot of student athletes in that group. So I just asked for a show of hands, how many of you are student athletes? Well, all but one were. And
wow.
Several of them were from different cultures. This young lady from Germany just was amazing. She's learning English as a second language as she is taking college classes and playing in her sport.
Wow.
And she's 18 years old. And I think, well, I'm trying to think back what I was doing when I was 18.
It was not that.
It was not that.
But it would be goofy and not of much importance. That's just so impressive to do that. And she would struggle some with the language barrier as we'd be in class, but she's gradually overcoming that. And that's just phenomenal to me. And I think it's to be commended. And that's something that brings a lot of value to Faulkner and other students that get to interact with those that are that impressive. It's a great opportunity. It really is.
Yeah. Some kids are leaving home. You just talked about, coming from Germany. It's got to be some impact, maybe some homesickness. But, if they're leaving home for the first time, they go to college. What are some ways to prepare for that mentally? And maybe some tips to avoid homesickness?
Well, my tip to parents would be start when they're about 6 years old, preparing for that time when they're going to go off to college. Now, it's easy for me to say that. Mine are grown, and I've already made all of my mistakes with them. But it really is, I think, probably the one area that's a little bit overarching is what I see. This is what I'm seeing in the counseling center and have been seeing for some period of time. We have students that come to see us that fall in two sort of general categories. One group of students have been overparented and one group who have been underparented. And so it's really sad. We have some who come in, you might not be aware of on a college campus how many people are here from very dysfunctional and broken families and have just unbelievably tragic stories of their childhood. And they're coming out of that and they're trying to, at the same time, remedy some things from the past and prepare for the future. And so those are pretty big challenges. And they've not been parented. They've not been taught how to resolve conflict with others. They've not been taught how to interact in a way that doesn't inflame passions. And so you've got that extreme. And then you've got a few of the sort of our stereotypical, I hate to say homeschooling because that sounds like I'm talking about a whole class of it. We have some amazing homeschool students here who are accomplishing amazing things. But the stereotype is that's a grouping that's kind of overprotected. And it's also, that happens. I came from a family, my parents were overly protective of me. my parents parented out of fear, and they wanted to make sure I was never exposed to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so, by the way they did that was I stayed in the house. I couldn't go to parties, and I didn't do many of the things that my friends in high school did. And that's an overly protective. That's suppressing young people and not allowing young people to develop the ability to make decisions. And so people who grow up in that environment where they've never made decisions for themselves, suddenly they're here and they've got to decide how much time do I need to allow for study outside of class? How do I socialize with other people? What's okay, what's not okay? And so we have a lot of students, or some students in that category, that call the parents every day and kind of need some reassurance and some conversation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if it's because you are afraid to launch into to be somewhat independent, it could be unhealthy. And so some of those same ones go home almost every weekend. Some of the parents are pushing that. I want you to come home every weekend so we can grill you on who you've been talking to, what's been going on. And those students miss out on a lot of interaction with other students and activities on campus, and the socializing and the emotional maturity that you gain from being around others. And so to back up to your question, I think beginning early and working hard to push yourself to allow your children to make more and more decisions for themselves while they're still living at home, and while you're there with them to help correct and prop them up when they make bad decisions, to allow them to make some bad decisions. That's really a good way to prepare them for the time when they're going to leave home. And that time comes so quickly. All of us are shocked how quickly our kids are ready to go off to college. And it will happen to all of your listeners. It'll be like that.
I got one more year left with one of mine.
Isn't it amazing how quickly that comes?
It's crazy. And, I've always said, and I've always encouraged, and I try to do this with my kids, but I probably fail a lot at it. You got to give them enough leeway that they can fail and learn from it. But
Yes.
you don't want to give them so much that it's going to be detrimental to them, and they're going to get hurt, or they're going to get killed, or, whatever else. I mean, there's got to be there's a boundary there, but there is a need for them to be able to do things, experience things, and live with some of the consequences so that they do know, how to deal with that when they get out on their own, because I'm not going to be there forever.
What are some tips for parents to assist, but also not be overwhelming or overbearing? Because there is that tendency to want to see them and lay eyes on them.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I don't know, it's hard to list specific tips, but in general and broadly, I would say this might surprise a lot of people. I think probably one of the greatest needs is for parents to learn and teach or help their children learn conflict resolution skills. I think that's greatly missing in our culture and our society today. I think that's why we have some of the animosity on social media that we have in politics. It's just really has gotten worse and worse and worse, because people don't know how to have civil conversations and resolve conflict. Well, if you can't resolve conflict with your sibling in your family of origin, the odds of you resolving a conflict with a roommate in a university setting are not very high.
Right.
And so learning how to resolve just basic conflicts, and you want this and I want this, and that doesn't jive. How do we come to some solution that works for both of us? And how do I ask for forgiveness when I mess up? How do I come to you and say that hurt me when you did that thing? Just that kind of is sort of basic conversation skills, but conflict resolution is huge. And I think parents that will go and find a way to learn that with your children, you're doing them a great, great service, and they will be leaders almost immediately, because they will be surrounded by people who don't have those skills and will rely on them to help resolve conflicts. And people will bring them problems because teenage years and college years, that's conflict and he said, she said, and somebody broke my heart. That's what's going on all the time.
There might be a reason Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, because sometimes they're few and far between. People who know how to handle that. Along with that, what are some things that you've seen from or seen in college students from a mental health standpoint that might be different from previous generations? Because I know that there's a lot of new things out there too. So what are some of the things you're seeing?
That's a great question. And being from I hear from my generation, from the people that I went to back when Faulkner University was Alabama Christian College, back in the Stone Age. We were students here, and some of those people now, when we get together and we come on campus for alumni reunions, they will make comments about, well, why didn't we have counselors when we were here? And sometimes we'll kind of arrogantly talk about solving our own problems, and maybe we didn't have those problems. Well, it's hard to have an accurate perspective about yourself. I'm sure we probably had some needs for counseling and just were unaware of it. But here's a trend that I see developing. It seems to be growing quickly, and that is just the sheer amount of anxiety that students are carrying around with them. That definitely is a trend that has increased in the time that I've been here. I've been at Faulkner in this capacity about 12 years, and the amount of there's no doubt we keep some records of presenting problems and those kind of things. And before we do that at the end of every semester, we already know the number one presenting problem is going to be anxiety. And then the things that are tagging along with that, depression and panic attacks. So anxiety is the one biggest thing, and that's the biggest change. And it's just kind of, we had some anxiety when I was 18, 20 years old, but not at the same level and not as widespread. And we live in a United States culture, probably exaggerated by the pandemic and then amplified greatly by social media, of people are walking around. If you measure anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10, most people are probably walking around at a 3 or 4 or 5 all the time, always at a level 4. So it doesn't take much to jump up to an 8 or even a 10. And so I'm seeing students occasionally, graduate students, that have panic attacks that are severe enough they literally think they're having a heart attack. I've had a couple of law students who called paramedics because they thought they were having a heart attack, and it's a panic attack. And that's just an elevated outgrowth of anxiety. And so I think all of us at all ages probably are carrying more anxiety now than we have in the past. And for that age, they still have, their lives are not mapped out for them yet. They don't know how things are going to turn out. There's national debate about student loans, and on and on and on we could go. There's just a lot of things for them to worry about. And so they worry. And I think anxiety is at epidemic levels, far more than COVID is. And so it's a challenge. That's a hard thing for students to deal with. And it's so hard to identify. And most of us are carrying it and we don't realize we're carrying it. And so that's hard for college students.
Yeah, as a mental health counselor myself, it's probably I know it's the biggest thing that I deal with. And I'm talking about from kids, 6 and 7 years old, all the way to, older people. So won't set an age there, but you get people who are grandparents, who are already or who are still dealing with it or dealing with it now. And I do think a lot of that is, probably the way that we have not dealt with handling conflicts, all those things that you said. Yeah. And, we just live in a world where everything is in front of us at all times on social media, in the news. I grew up watching news every night with my parents, and you kind of have those moments of, oh no, man, there's all these bad things that are happening in the world. And then it went away, but now it pops up on your phone every 5 minutes. There's another, big thing that's happening, big news story, national news story, and it's constant. So I think that has really done a disservice to all of us in some ways.
Not all podcasts are geared towards health and humor.
I want to say how phenomenal it is that I think you're that foundation. You're one of the foundation teachers, and they get that opportunity to kind of start that relationship and start off their college career with somebody they know can help them in that aspect. I think that goes a long way. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. And it does help. It helps in the personal interaction in the classroom as well.
Family devotional time, fulfilling, organized, fun. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Moses' words in Deuteronomy 6:4-8 to the children of Israel in the speech that closed out not only his ministry, but also his life, can be overwhelming at times and make us as parents feel like we could be doing more to disciple our children. In the fast-paced life that we live, we're usually just happy if everyone makes it out the door with their shoes on the correct feet. Planning and executing a family devotional time can seem out of reach. We're here to help. The Helping Healing Humor podcast is a tool to help you plan, organize, and execute a fulfilling and fun family devotional time for every member of your family, from toddler to teen. As a member of the Ben and Travis Patreon community, you will have access to tons of content at a small price that will help you grow your spiritual life, disciple your family, or even lead a small group Bible study. Patreon membership fees will help our podcast continue to be better and support the cost of creating and publishing the content that our Helping Healing Humor community has enjoyed. Go to www.patreon.com/Ben and Travis to sign up. Hit the link in the show notes for this month's special offer. It is the Lads to Leaders question of the day. Roxy, when you're in the car, whether there's somebody with you or not, it really doesn't matter to me. When my song comes on, I don't care. I'm going to sing and act out. If I'm not driving, I'll play air guitar or something. But if there's a song that comes on the radio, you're going to turn it up. If it's warm enough, the windows are coming down so that even people outside the car can enjoy the performance. What song is your jam?
First of all, you do not want to be in the car with me when I'm singing, because that is not a skill that I have. And can I give you two answers?
Absolutely.
Sure.
One is the one that I want to give because I want to try to impress you. And that is Here Comes a Comeback by Danny Goki, I think's his name. And it's a good song, and it's a good, the message is really strong, and it's a catchy song. But the truth is, the one that really will make me kind of shrug my shoulders is Fancy Like by Walker Hayes. Because that is just so well written, and it's goofy, but it's kind of, he's singing, these are my people now.
Yeah.
He's singing my song.
Well, everybody knows what he's talking about, right? I mean, everybody's, at least in the South, I don't know if Applebee's is a national chain, but here in the South, Applebee's, right? You know what's going on there.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's a funny song, and it's about my way of living, and he makes me want to kind of do this a little bit. And
that's fantastic.
Not many things do that for me.
That is great.
Well, hey, if they have some questions for you, tell us where they can reach out to you. If somebody's got questions about Faulkner, I'm assuming you would be happy to answer those, or if they've got anything, can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So many things are at faulkner.edu. You can find a lot there, but you can reach me at Wishum, ROWISHUM at faulkner.edu. Email me about anything, and I'll be happy to respond as time allows. And but go to the Faulkner website and look around there. There's a lot. We're really pushing the new online mental health counseling program, and that's growing and expanding. We have so many, the health sciences. We've bought the shopping center next door, and that has been developed and remodeled, and that has just taken off. It's amazing what's happening in that. In the law school, we have a number of really good colleges within the university system that's doing very well. So any questions that you have, I'd be happy to try to answer. But again, as I get older, I'm I'm realizing a lot of questions, it's better if I defer to somebody that actually knows the answer. But
He can get you to somebody who can
That's
answer.
exactly right. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Roxy. We appreciate you. We appreciate Faulkner University and what they're doing down there. Like I said, I've had several students come through there, and they've all developed and become great people. No matter how much damage I did, you guys were able to fix that, and I certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ben and Travis. Thank you for what you do and for sharing the idea of mental health and being able to do it with some humor. I think that's outstanding, and we need to be able to laugh at ourselves in order to learn and grow. And so I appreciate what you do.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.